Good morning and welcome back to Hook of the Week. Sorry we missed last week, but we had a great time at the Rocky Mountain Smiths Blacksmithing Conference. Hope you got a chance to watch that video. If not, I'll give you a link right up here. But now, let's make a hook. What have we got in this, what used to be a bucket thing? Well, people like to ask about the oddball stuff. So how about if we go with this piece of heavy wall tubing, it's 1/4-inch wall tubing. Not a very big piece. I don't think there's any way to just turn it into a hook easily. So I think I'm going to do a 2-piece hook with that. And to go with it, let's take this piece of, it looks like 1/4 by 3/4. So this tubing is something like 2 inches square, 1/4-inch wall, or that's roughly 50 millimeters square tubing with a 6 millimeter wall. This would be 6 by 20 millimeter. And this piece looks like it's 8 inches long or about 210 millimeters long. Again, the sizes don't matter. It's what I got in my bucket. If you got a bucket of useful stuff, make hooks out of what you have. Don't cut it to fit mine. Now, like I say, I don't think that this particular piece of tubing is just going to turn itself into a hook. And we've already squished a piece of tubing under the hydraulic press. So what I think I'm going to do is I think I'm going to cut this right here, and then I'm going to open it up and forge it flat, and I want to see what we get. I think I'm going to leave it as close to that shape as I can. I may do a little bit of profiling just to make it more interesting, but then as we get this big flat section in the center front of the hook, I will make a hook out of this and I will rivet that to it. Then the wings that are formed when I open up the tubing will be where I put my mounting holes. So let's start over at the little Portaband bandsaw, and I'll just cut that real quick. Then we'll put it in the fire, and we'll see what we end up with. The first thing I want to do is just open this up at that cut. I'll just drive that down over a hardy is a convenient way to start things like this. Heavy tubing can be kind of tough to open up. Get it over the horn of the anvil would be a good place to get a little bit more. Once it starts to be open, it'll be easy enough to get it over the face of the anvil, but it takes a little effort here. Go the other way, open that side up some more. As always, I like to look at forms as they progress. I see some sort of a mask, maybe a buffalo or a cow skull or something like that. If you put some eye holes in there, you might be able to do something kind of interesting with that. Now this will be much easier to flatten. I want to take the telltale signs of the corners out, although I don't suppose you really need to. If you like the look, you could certainly leave them in there. And because this piece of tubing was cut at an angle, it's got a real nice bevel here. This bevel's on the wrong side, so I'm going to forge it over. But there's no corresponding bevel on these edges. And this one is obviously ground in. Well, it was cut with a saw, but it isn't a forged bevel. So I think I'm going to grind this to make that match when I'm all done. But in the meantime, let's go ahead and work on the hook. I think this is another one of these things that I kind of like the upset end on. This sort of becomes part of my style, I think. You could do a little scroll or some other finial on the end if you want to. The upset needs to come to the front, so I'm kind of using sweeping blows. I want to make sure the upset is actually flush with the back, and sometimes you got to kind of work at the corner of the anvil to get in there without damaging the upset itself. It's also off to one side a little bit, so I'll push it over some. We'll just put a little bit of a bevel in this part that's going to rivet to the back plate. I'll wait and drill these holes so that I can make sure everything lines up just right with that back plate. Next thing is turn the hook end into a hook. I think for this, I'm going to knock the corners back so it kind of rounds it up. And then I'm going to make a nice wide flat hook out of this. Instead of drawing it out to a taper. I think we'll spread it out this way. Draw it out to a fairly thin point in one direction, but I'm just letting it spread widthwise. To make it a good hook for, oh, maybe a hat or some kind of clothing that you really don't want any sharp edges or tight bends. Knock the edges off so it isn't sharp. Then I think I'll sink it in a swedge so that the inside of the hook is nice and curved. I'm just going to put it in this nice big swedge here. That should result in a nice curved inside. And I should say that it'll be the inside of the hook when I bend it up. I'm going to start a little back bend in this, and this is just an old trailer ball that just happens to fit in my pritchel hole. And that way I can maintain that curve a little bit better. Anytime you're bending something that's dished like that, it's going to want to flatten out, but we can kind of work it around here and keep that in pretty good shape. That's really about all I want there. Then to bend the hook, I'm going to use this adjustable jig one of the viewers sent me a while back. If you don't remember seeing that video, I'll try to link to it. That makes for a pretty nice hook with a very gentle inside curve. So I'm going to let this cool. and then we'll put it on the back plate. I've gone ahead and ground the back plate and recreated that bevel all the way around the back plate. And now I'm just going to file it, clean it up, make it a little bit neater. So it's easier to get the file in here than it was the grinder. Now we have our hook. I'm going to put the hook right about there on this. Bring the upset just down from the edge. That means we need 2 holes in the hook to hold it steady. One about there and one right about there. These are 5/8 long rivets going through 1/2 inch of material total, 1/4 inch for the hook and 1/4 inch for the back plate. And that leaves about an 1/8 inch sticking up, but it's going to be a flush rivet, so most of that gets worked down into that countersink. And I'm just going to set them cold. It's one of the advantages of buying soft rivets, is they're really easy to set cold in most cases. If I needed a nice pretty round head, I'd heat them up, but for a flush head rivet here, it should be just fine. Make sure they really go flush. If you have to, file or grind the high spot off. And we're going to need a couple of mounting holes in here for whatever size screws or bolts you want. I'll go ahead and use 1/4 inch lag screws to mount this to the wall, so I'll drill a hole a little over 1/4 inch. I just like to knock the edges off of the holes so they're a little bit more refined, make sure there's no sharp edges on there. And I think I should go ahead and put my touch mark in here, so I'm going to heat it up, touch mark it, then we'll put some wax on it. Good chance to give the whole piece of wire brushing and blend in those file marks so it looks more natural with the back plate. Make sure that doesn't squish my hook. As this cools, we'll give it a little coating of paste wax. It's got to cool quite a bit. You want just a little bit of smoke as you put wax on these things. We've looked at paste wax finish before. Time to buy a new brush here. This works too though, just take a lump of wax. Then just take a minute to wipe off any excess wax before it completely cools. Well, here's our completed hook of the week with a back plate made out of a piece of square tubing that has been cut open and flattened out. Now certainly if you're trying to make a hook along these lines, starting with a piece of flat plate would be way easier than starting with square tube. But the square tube is what I had in the bucket, and after all, that is part of the challenge, to use the stuff in the bucket. Now as I look at this hook, I wonder if this could be shape more like a wing, and you could kind of make bird's wings out of this somehow. Maybe if you made some sort of a cove detail here, it might look interesting. These could come out to a point. It could stay flat a little bit longer, split and scroll. Lots of things you could do to a hook like this if you want to take the idea just a little bit farther than what I've done here. But I wanted to leave this more or less the way the materials wanted to be shaped right out of the bucket without doing too much to completely alter it, even though we could have done that. But in any case, I hope you enjoyed the project, and I do hope you have time in your day to get out to your shop, make something, but stay safe, wear your safety glasses, and we'll see you for the next one.